bed. And not only that, a 9-year-old child is usually at home in bed and not wide awake, walking down a long path such as a pitch black Highway 18, burying a bag, because see, there was in fact eyewitnesses that stated they might have seen her. Remember, all eyewitness accounts are not always what's the term for it? I won't say viable, but a lot of times eyewitnesses are prone to in fact be wrong. And even in relation to missing children cases and even possible murder, sometimes eyewitnesses are in fact wrong, as into saying they seen something which was not there to begin with. Which is why I'm questioning right here on camera, pertaining to even when somebody stated, well, maybe she buried her bag. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe not. Because if you were an eyewitness out there and you saw a child possibly desperately leaving away from home to take off in the air past midnight, and she's walking with all white on with a shovel, is to say something could be in fact wrong with that little girl. Where is she going? And not only that, I don't want her in my car because she might hit me over the head with that sort of thing, because that is in fact metal. Many of these shovels are in fact man-made, materialized metal. That hitting somebody with a shovel could even possibly kill somebody. Which is why I'm saying that didn't happen, as in Asia herself burying her bag. And not only that, we question just that, the opening statement of a shovel. But where people don't want you to question even these sort of things, because they know that I'm in fact not writing, but in fact I'm a writer, but pertaining to the questioning of being right and a writer is to say I am in fact writing. And even this, the question of the shovel. Why was it there to begin with? Why is a shovel in a person's possession, such as a car, around the time at 4 a.m.? Or was it even in the car to begin with? Was that sort of thing picked up over at another place, such as at a shed or somewhere, where Asia's items have been found? Picked up. Yes, found. Where was this shed being kept along the way in all of this mess that I'm looking at? You and I, the viewer, with this Asia degree case, is all a mess, and yet a shovel plays its part in even that, as in even the shovel itself has a role in the mystery of Asia degree. So I got notes right here. Hopefully when I fumble this paper, it's not loud into the microphone. This is in fact eight pages of what I wrote out, but I don't think all 8 pages is going to fit. I don't think so. So I might in fact make a part 1 and a part 2, because the shovel ain't right and it stands out just like everything else. It has to, because it was used for digging purposes. But not only that, I'm gonna repeat a lot in this video. Hopefully not, because I didn't really review my notes. But I'm thinking, pertaining to a shovel, what all would a shovel be used for outside of just burying things? Could a shovel have in fact played a part in the young girl's murder? As in how traumatizing it sounds, and even that. I stick with the story of I do believe that the family has something to do with Asia and possibly murder. The family, Asia's family, right? I stick with that. So don't become lost in me trying to analyze, as in pick pieces apart. Sometimes people can follow along in what you're saying and then they start to become lost. But when I stick with what I feel happened to her, as in her family somewhere right along where Asia lived, as in the home itself, when I say that, I say guilt can be there with the family. That's my perspective of who could have did what and why. But to extend outwardly is to question everything altogether, as in we're all goes together, everything goes together. So don't get lost in questioning, well, who do you really think? Because I already stated who I really think. But at the same time, I want to question these tools. Yes, tools pertaining to what were they there for, as in a car? Where were they stored? What purpose did they even play in all the mystery of that? And not only that, could they have been used for weapon purposes? Yes, even shovels are used to kill people even nowadays and even back then. So let me try not to repeat too much. I might and I might not, but the opening. Does a shovel get, I want you to question this because this builds critical thinking as well as logic and reasoning skills. It does. Being a critical thinker will help even you solve your day-to-day problems in life and possibly more if something drastic such as this was to happen to you, right? So this is the question. Does a shovel get carried around in a car, or does a shovel get stored in a housing establishment? Does that or does that not make sense? Does a shovel get carried around in a car, say on a day-to-day basis, and even possibly around a 4 a.m.? Or does a shovel get stored in a housing establishment or even attachment such as a garage or a shed? I want you, the viewer, to tell me. We're a metal shovel, not a plastic shovel, because see, to bury something deep down into ground is to know you're in fact going to need something which is not going to break. And a plastic shovel more than likely can't really be used completely in that sort of thing, I'm thinking. I don't think somebody would want to use a plastic shovel for that sort of thing. To be digging, to uproot something, to lay a 9-year-old child's book bag in the ground and then put some dirt soil on top of that, because a plastic shovel possibly could be used, but that's to say the contractor, the land contractor and the construction workers that were maintaining that area where they were going to build, where the child's bag was found, that is in fact to question that aspect, as in what was uprooted, not the bag. I'm saying before the bag was planted by the construction workers and the contractor, how much of that dirt was in fact soft? Because see, you got to measure that in as well. How hard or how soft was the actual ground itself before somebody took the time to bury the bag there? I'm thinking you're not going to want to do that with your hands, be grabbing that mud and all that, because that's a mess in itself. And not only that, you're going to want to go somewhat deep, but not all the way deep. But I'm thinking a plastic shovel could have did that sort of thing if that grounding area, the land itself where her book bag was found, was soft just enough to do that, right? Let me think. Could a plastic shovel be used for digging and placing a child's book bag into the ground and say covering it? Because if you're out in that area to begin with doing that, that is to say mud and possibly puddles would have been there. So that would have in fact made the ground more loose and less firm. Let me see, more loose, less firm, and possibly, let me see, more loose, less firm, more watery. But I still don't think a 9-year-old child would have done that. She wouldn't. I don't think she would, because to be afraid of the dark, that's too much time. And her digging with her little bitty hands, she got little hands and not big hands. That would have took more time. And not only that, the bag would have been seen a little bit more sooner than a year later. That marking right there is off as in the question when somebody asks me, well, could a 9-year-old child have dug the bag into the ground herself, as in placed that bag there? No, because it takes time, and to be too afraid of the dark and there's no light is to say you possibly didn't do that. The ground would have been soft enough, the soil aspect would have been a little bit soft enough for her to do that sort of thing. But I'm thinking and I'm sensing that bag would have been a little bit more up above ground, despite it, if she would have did that, despite her putting the bag into the ground and say her patching dirt on top of it. I think there will be somewhat of a surface area of that even being off the calculation with the young child, because if a young child 9-year-old digs something or dig her way into the ground to hide a bag like that, it's going to be more up towards the surface. Remember, she would only be using her hands. And not only that, it will be a complete mess with that and possibly all over her clothes. Because I'm thinking a young 9-year-old child at that short stature possibly ain't gonna be standing up to bury her own bag in that type of environment. She would in fact want to bend down and possibly even on her knees, or say possibly even eyewitnesses could have seen if the rain wouldn't have washed that all off, as in the mud. I just can't see a child doing that. That's too much time and too much work on her behalf, and the being afraid of darkness is the number one thing which would have prevented that sort of thing. That's an issue and a problem. That's like a resolution right there, that she didn't do that. I don't think so. But a plastic shovel or a metal shovel. North Carolina, I'm going to skip into that a little bit later, but North Carolina, it wasn't snowing. See, because people do sometimes carry shovels in their car for emergency purposes such as getting themselves out of the snow if a car wheel becomes buried or locked up in some snow or whatnot. People have been known to in fact carry plastic shovels more so, and not metal shovels, in the trunk of their car. But North Carolina is really not known as a state to get deep in snow like that. The states where I lived, all the states, areas and all that, zip codes and all that, area codes, those sort of states are known to have thick impacted snow to the point where, yes, you would need a shovel in your car, and yet not a metal shovel. You would in fact need a plastic shovel to dig you out, because some of the snow would in fact come up to almost where this window is right here on this car. Yes, environments in which I've lived, in fact, that sort of thing does take place. But North Carolina is not one of those places. Where I lived, it would get like that almost every winter, at least once or twice out of the winter. But North Carolina, I don't think is prone for that sort of thing. So that's why it helps to ask these sort of questions. Why would a shovel be in a car? A metal shovel and not a plastic shovel. So let me ask this again. Does a shovel used for digging purposes get carried around in a car and possibly the trunk of a car or a pickup truck, or does someone return home to get a shovel? Remember, this is a rural environment of where Asia went missing. North Carolina, out in the country, Burke County, Shelby, Burke County, off of Highway 18 is in fact rural country environment. Those sort of people have usually shovels on hand, but I'm thinking and I'm believing that I can be right and not wrong in this aspect. People that are prone to carry shovels out in that area usually use those sort of things in a pickup truck or a 4x4, and not in the back of their car, and not even in the back seat or even in the trunk of a car. Because the reason why I'm saying this is those individuals in those rural environments are a lot of times known and prone to do off-road driving. Off-road driving. You're not going to want to take a car, standard car vehicle, such as a 1973 Lincoln Continental or a 1973 Ford Thunderbird. You're not going to want to take one of those type of vehicles off-road driving in a country. I can't see that. I could be wrong, and even that, and even FBI would know what's up about that sort of thing. Such as whoever tipped them off with that being the car, the 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 green Ford Thunderbird. Those type of cars don't do they don't do off-road driving. Which is why I'm sitting here right here. The car that I'm in right now doesn't even do off-road driving. So I wouldn't even be seen riding around even in that, going off-road in a vehicle which I know possibly wouldn't even really completely make it. What is the point and position of off-road? There's all type of activity that goes on in off-road, in which if you get a car such as the one I'm sitting in, or 1970. See, a 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird, that type of car is so old, it might not make it, especially back in 2000 when whoever had it that supposedly took the girl and she became missing. Those type of cars are known and prone to stall out because it's old to begin with. So why would you even be trying to take a chance of riding it off-road? I'm thinking that individual, if they had something to do with Asia disappearing, that individual had to have had another vehicle outside of a standard, somewhat luxury car. Remember, it was a 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird. Those were considered standard, not more so. They were standard, but more so luxury type of car. Grown men love those type of cars, right? Even in today. They wouldn't want to travel and even explore on no off-road activity in no car like that. I'm thinking that car would have got somewhere and got stuck. Listen to me when I say that. That car, that 1973 back in 2000 would have went completely off-road and got stuck and stalled out. Because to tell me there was rust on the wheel wells is to know a stall out could have stood there as well, trying to take a chance driving off-road and that sort of thing. So this leads me in the direction of saying that individual had to have had another vehicle, possibly a 4x4 or even more, in relation to even that, the off-road activity. Because the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because FBI and police, all of them, said that it could possibly been a woodsman, right? A woodsman is somebody that live amongst the woods, know how to travel and get around in the woods, and they possibly could carry on an off-road activity, such as driving 4x4s and ATVs. You know what an ATV is? A ATV, mechanicalized rolling device. Yes, it's not a car, but many of them in fact roll on 4 wheels. You can mount stuff to the back of them and everything. They look somewhat like a larger form of, say, a go-kart, but they sit higher. ATV machine. That is in fact country activity, and sometimes even young boys like to even be on those sort of things. Young boys like to drive ATVs out in the country and all that. But I can't really see a young boy driving a 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 green Ford Thunderbird unless his grandfather gave him the keys to that car and he went on about his business and having one. I can't see. Something about that is not right. This is a link-to-link match on my end of, if you say it's a woodsman, dear FBI police, that's to say, in fact, that individual that had that car, they had to, in fact, have had another car to get around. I'm saying if a car was destroyed in the process of them wanting, the person that owned the vehicle, if them wanting to cover evidence, and even that, because to live in country, it's to know a bus transportation is not going to come along and get you. A cab service might not come along and get you because that costs too much. That's mileage, and even that. A cab service coming way out to the country to come pick you up so you can go way back in towards town to go to work. Depending on where a person might have work, that's a lot of money to spend on the cab. That's a lot of money for a bus, because I don't think no bus outside school buses are to be found and even located out there, such as a bus line on a rural road. Anybody know of any bus lines on Highway 18? I don't think so. Because even that is lively to get somebody killed in the process. Is a transportation bus, because a city bus usually is for the city purposes and not for the country, right? Which is why country people are prone to move out away from the city to get away from all that, the loud noises and city transportation and all that. That's why a lot of people, rural country people, move out to the country. But a death could even stand in, say, somebody standing along Highway 18 or any of them roads out there in that rural area, standing on the side waiting for a bus to come along, and then the bus gotta stop, and here come a semi truck or something coming along, flying and smashing into the back of the bus as it's sitting there. So that's to tell me that even though bus lines are out in the area, possibly not so. So with me saying even that, I'm jumping way ahead, and I should, because sometimes I jump way ahead even when I got notes. And yet I'm getting there. Just ease back yourself on this, because something is not right. That individual had to have two make and models on even vehicles, even pertaining to the ownership of the vehicles. Whoever owned that 1973 Lincoln Continental, listen to me when I say that, or the green Lincoln Ford Thunderbird, one or the two mismatched cars, they have had to have had another vehicle, because that's a little bit too far to be out in that rural area and be moving around on foot. Because who's to say, how are you going to get to, say, the store to buy groceries? Are you walking on foot to get to the store to come back with a pile full of groceries? I mean, if you got to go to work, how are you getting to work? If your work is not in that same environment. See what I'm saying? People don't think about this sort of thing, and yet I do. And yet they call me a know-it-all. And even that's not right. I just got a well-equipped mind, just enough to think these things out, sort them out. That's a no-go. To have one car as evidence and damage that car, such as destroy it completely destroy evidence of a car, is to say another vehicle could possibly sit somewhere, even in that, the individual that did what? In this whole mess. Because rural roads, that's off the hook. That in itself is a clue, let me tell you. Somebody could be living right around in that same area if they had something to do with burying Asia's bag or possibly whatever else with her, right? They could be living out in that same area, and police or FBI or whoever might not never even know that they're out there off of that Highway 18 somewhere along Burke County or Shelby, in between in that area. Because how do you get around after you done went and destroyed a car that was evidence? How do you get around? How do you get around? I want somebody to tell me. How are you getting around? You either, if you're young, you either got homies that pick you up. I would, even if I was police, check it to that. You either got homies picking you up. You either got a husband and wife or somebody picking you up, or you're using their car pertaining to a transmission in alignment, and then that as in the movement going backward or forward. Something about that is off. The stacking aspect of me piecing all together is off. Yep. Let me ask again this. Does a shovel used for digging purposes get carried around in a car, and possibly the trunk of a car? Or trunk? Yes, or trunk of a car. Or does someone return home to get a shovel? Where is a shovel usually kept on a day-to-day basis? Is it in a car every day, even at 4 a.m., or is it kept somewhere in a garage or a shed? I just asked that in the beginning of this video. And I'm asking again for you, the viewer, to even analyze yourself. Who lugs around a shovel on a day-to-day basis in their car? In North Carolina, not out of state. I'm speaking about North Carolina, Shelby, Burke County to be exact, where Asia went missing. All undetected. Who carries a shovel and lugs it around in their car? Who does that sort of thing? Outside of murderers and serial killers, who does that sort of thing? If a possible, say if they wasn't a serial killer, didn't have the nutty mindset of a serial killer, and say it was an average day-to-day individual such as you and I, the viewer, and you or I, the viewer, and say they're just moving around in society, and they just choose to be in North Carolina near Shelby or Burke County, or actually in that actual county, and say having a shovel in the back of a old car, such as a 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird. Remember, this was back in 2002. Who was doing those sort of things? Yep. See, look. If the individual, if an individual isn't known to carry a shovel in their vehicle, then they had to have returned back home in order to attain a shovel for burying a child's book bag. Does that or does that not make sense? If an individual was rolling around back in 2000 in some 1973 car, whatever the car, if they were not known to carry a shovel, metal shovel at that, and not plastic, I'm thinking to bury something like that a little bit deep, because that's to say it had to be deep enough for it to not be found until the following year, which is why I'm considering the shovel to in fact be metal and not plastic. So, see, if an individual isn't known to carry a shovel in their vehicle, then they had to have returned somewhere back home in order to attain a shovel, yes, to get and grab a shovel for burying a child's book bag. So if you didn't have one in your car and you had to go back home to get the shovel, you had to either go back within the four walls of your home, such as a basement, or possibly even a garage. And some people even allow shovels to be sitting outside, but depending on them, if they think a criminal could live amongst them, and even possibly a murderer or a hitchhiker. Rural roads, people they're known to think of even that. Hitchhikers might come along, see a shovel sitting outside of your house, pick it up and then whack it upside the head as you coming out at night. Some people are known in the country to fry stuff and burn wood and stuff at night, which is why sometimes they possibly wouldn't allow those sort of tools to sit out even up against their own home at night. I question even the shed. Turner Upholstery, the shed of Debbie, the woman herself, I'm going to question that later. Where did that shovel come from? Where did that shovel come from? Because something about that is offset. It's offset. It doesn't make sense, and it does. Yep, if that person didn't have that shovel sitting in their car on a day-to-day basis, they had to return back somewhere, as in go home somewhere in order to attain a shovel for burying a child's book bag. I'm thinking, if this was more of a personal matter and say this sort of thing was planned days before Asia became up missing and possibly dead, then the individual possibly planned that in there as well, as in putting the shovel in their car. I'm thinking. But that fits in right there with the family. That shovel aspect that I just called out. When I said I feel like her family possibly in the home, the four walls of her home could have did this, whatever mess to Asia, right? That shovel fits right in with that sort of thing. It's a key link in all of it. Where did the shovel come from? Because see, even if Asia's parents had something to do with, say, murdering her and then burying her bag, and say they planned all days before, such as the father, mother, whoever, that's to say they could have possibly put the shovel into the car either days leading up to. I don't think a person would want to drive around with a shovel like that in their car, because even that could be illegal, because it could be used as a weapon. Or they would have put it in the car that night when, say, they possibly carry her dead body out or something out and put her in the car and put the shovel in the car. However all this mess went down is to say that's a key link, this shovel I'm questioning. Because to bury anything is to say a shovel had to have been there and not your bare hands. And a shovel could possibly have been there, say, in burying a child as well, if she was buried. If she's dead. If she was buried and if she's dead, a shovel would have had to be in hand as well. So, if the individual didn't have the shovel in their car, in the midst of all this mess and chaos of which I'm speaking on, that's to say, where did they go to get the shovel? Because see, all this whole thing seems to be about a time and a timeline. And I'm able to even look into that as in the abstraction, as in tying all together where certain things meet, where other people can't see that all this stuff is completely scandalous. That's completely scandalous, let me tell you. It's off the yard and the playing field. But to have eyes like mine is to go back even in the form of the detail of where even FBI possibly may have looked, but something about that shovel is off. Because to go in on a shovel, that's a small clue, right? Which your average mind will bypass. But even a shovel will tell you where somebody could have been sitting, say even late at night. Such as the shovel itself. Once again, was the shovel found, yes, in the shed? What is it? Turner Upholstery shed? Did that shovel sit amongst all her stuff in her actual shed? Or was it part of the Degree family? Or was it the man that supposedly owned and operated that 1973 Lincoln Continental? That shovel points 3 different directions. It's one of the missing links. Because even death, I'm saying, can stand in that, as in the arrival of even Asia herself, if she ever made it out the house, or if she didn't, and even that, right? I tend to wonder what other reason or purpose could that shovel have been used for outside of just digging in order to bury a child's book bag that's 9 years old at that. I said the timing, yes, the timing. The timing is a factor in all this. I can't see somebody saying, let me break this down. I can't, because the timing factor is the key in all this. More than likely, Asia was not meeting some random kidnapper or somebody she knew to have her walk 1.3 miles, because even a kidnapper would have knew somebody could have even obstructed the kidnapper themselves from getting to her. They wouldn't want her to walk that far, is what I'm trying to say. 1.3 miles. They would have wanted her to meet them around the block and possibly down the way around the corner, and not 1.3 miles. Miles, once you put miles to something, that's too far for even a kidnapper. A seasoned kidnapper on top of that. I can't see that. And not in the rain, because anybody could have pulled up on the side of the road and said, hey, young child, why are you out here? Even if she ran, somebody could have walked into the woods behind her and said, little girl, it's raining and it's wet and it's just too late for you to be out here. People are prone to do that sort of thing. And a kidnapper himself would know even that. I said that in my last video. Kidnapper wouldn't want that. He wouldn't want nobody getting his prey. Because, yes, he won't want nobody getting his prey, a young child, before he get it. That's why you don't have a child come meeting you 1.3 miles. So that's a no-go. That's a no-go. So the timing factor. Let's go back to the timing factor. Yes, timing being a factor again. Let me pause right quick. Hold on. Because I was going to say something. Let me think back if I can go back to where I was going to say. Let me pause 1 second. The 1.3 miles, somebody would have got in the way of that, as an intervene to get her out of the pour soaking rain at a temperature of 40 degrees is a little bit too wet. Somebody would have intervened in that, and a kidnapper would have known that sort of thing. So the home aspect. This right here is the meetup in that. I had to go back to that because, see, if a kidnapper is not grooming you because he possibly would have knew what I just stated about him not making her walk 1.3 miles, that's to say something more than likely possibly had to have happened at home. Because if a seasoned kidnapper is not going to have you walk 1.3 miles knowing that it's 30-40 degree temperature and it's torrential downpour, and not only that, he know that truckers are out at that time to live or be around that amongst that area, it's to possibly say, because I had to look up the routes and all that pertaining to that, that's to say that even a kidnapper would in fact know that somebody would come along such as a trucker or somebody in that form and fashion, and even get in his way. Possibly get in the kidnapper's way, right? So I don't think that happened. But in that aspect, that's where the situation points back home. As in, why did she leave in the first place? See what I'm saying? Let me pause. Let me pause for 1 second. Because that right there, in fact, is a clue in itself. That is, in fact, a clue in itself. That's, in fact, a huge clue in itself. Because, look, if a kidnapper know that somebody might, in fact, try to get you out of the cold, pouring rain, and the kidnapper wanting you to meet him past 1.3 miles or somewhere in between 1.3 miles, that's to say that kidnapper wouldn't want you to come out that time right there. He will possibly want you to come out at 4 a.m., but he's going to want you more closer to home. Because somebody might, in fact, cut off the plan in the process. Which is why I say a kidnapper, she wasn't groomed or lured out. She couldn't have been. That's where it, in fact, goes all the way back to home. As in, why did she leave in the first place? And then it points all the direction of what I said. Because even a woman or somebody would have, a trucker would have popped, because there's trucker routes out there. I looked up the routes, where the actual area specific, because I have never been on Highway 18. But there are, in fact, trucker routes. And not only that, some of these truckers take the chances of even coming out, yes, and going out on, say, a Highway 18 if that's not used for truckers. But there's sometimes will want to take a whole completely different detour than their original route to go elsewhere, possibly thinking it could lead them there much more quicker, right? And so in me saying that, yes, a kidnapper and luring a young child would know that. Because even truckers are known to sometimes get individuals in their trucks late at night and take them to truck stops and do things with them. And not just kids. I'm talking about sexually. Some of them have been known, yes, truckers. Some of them have known individuals to say, I'm thinking, because to be a trucker, you got to listen to this. To be a truck driver is to travel between not just highways such as a Highway 18 or any other highways around that, Highway 85, what was the other one I seen? Highway 182. It's to be a trucker is to not just travel along a highway such as that. It's to also travel amongst other highways, real highways, such as a full-blown interstate. And truckers have been known possibly to come across even sex trafficking, in that as in going to a truck stop. Truckers going to a truck stop and, say, meeting up with women or possibly picking up hitchhikers along the way. Because back in the day, there was, in fact, women prostituting and selling themselves at truck stops. And truckers have been known to play a part of even that aspect. Yes, truckers, grown men who drive trucks. And even drive four wheels outside of trucks. Was there any truck driver involved in the eyewitness aspect? I would ask even FBI, police, chief of police, sheriff, whoever. Well, even that. But I still don't think Asia herself was trafficked. I don't think so. I can sense that sort of thing, possibly murder or something. Because to bury, in a sense, does mean murder. And not only that, a truck driver, if, say, he was driving a semi-truck, he would have to go hide his truck far away to even do that. See what I'm saying? To lead up to something that's present even that, if that could have been evidence or had taken place. And that. I just got way off of course, but I had to show you that aspect. That, say, the reason why I just explained what I just explained, hopefully you didn't get lost in the detail of me saying. Hopefully you didn't get lost in me saying what I just said. Because, see, a kidnapper would have known that sort of thing. Because a kidnapper possibly would have been thinking, I got to get that child in my car as soon as possible. And not letting her walk 1.3 miles to meet me. Because somebody might take her, and possibly a truck driver. Or something. And not only, once again, as I stated in my last video, now not only do you have one possible kidnapper, such as a truck driver taking her somewhere, but now you have two kidnappers, somebody that will possibly want to lure her out of her house to meet them 1.3 miles or further. That couldn't have happened. I don't think that could have happened. That's a broad span right there. Person could have gotten in the way and stopped her from getting to the person that supposedly groomed her. That would have altered the course all the way. So that points all the way back home. What took place at home and why? What took place at home and why? At Asia's home. Because that's to say, what I just presented to you is to say that no abductor, as in kidnapper, lured her out of the house. If she left out of the house, something happened at the house, and more than likely, if she did leave, and I don't think, and since she did, that could have been somebody else, the eyewitness. Eyewitness accounts are always off sometimes. Yes, it is. Ask FBI police how some of these eyewitnesses are wrong, and not only that, how some of these eyewitnesses call in thinking they're going to get something because reward money is there. Yes, pertaining to that. So I'm just saying, what happened at home? Something had to have happened at home, because even if something happened at home and say Asia did leave out, then say if a grown man outside of her house had something to do with it, that's to say she was in fact met with foul play. Because the burying of the bad points to that. But what happened before all of this? Did somebody push her out the house, throw her out the house because she might have said something? Or she just wanted to leave because she was being molested? It's one of the two. Either the family over there was known to get mad and put Asia out the house at 4 a.m. or she was being molested and didn't want nothing to do with that sort of thing no more. And then at the end of it got met with foul play or something. So the timing, yes, with the shovel. The timing, that's why it points back home. It does point back home. Yes, it does. Because it's all timing in this. If a family member wanted to take Asia out of the home and say they planned whatever, then the shovel would have to go with that. It just would have. The shovel would have to go with that. The shovel has to lean on one end or the other is what I'm trying to say. And you can't even be lopsided in that aspect as where the shovel is to be placed. Like I'm trying to figure out, there's some leaning aspect. It either is on the hands of the family in Asia's home, or that shovel is on the hands of a grown man in which Asia ran into in foul play and she wasn't meeting up with this man. She just came along possibly with this man accidentally after something happened at home. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out who carries a shovel in their car. To plan something is to say, yes, you can put a shovel into your car if you are planning a possible murder or even your own child or somebody in the family doing that sort of thing. But if you didn't plan it, then you had to have returned home somewhere to some place, environment to get that shovel. Or you had to have got the shovel from the shed from Turner Upholstery. Turner Upholstery, that woman Debbie that owns that shed. You had to have found somewhere a shed sitting somewhere. That shed is a clue. That shed falls completely on somebody's hands, and which ain't telling, and they possibly might not ever tell. You never know. They possibly see whoever committed this against Asia possibly thought somebody like I would never set face and set foot on this camera just to try to figure out who hands the shovel was in. People just think that they can do something and walk away and not think that somebody would ever one day sit and try to figure out even that a shovel. Well, I just possibly killed a girl and I can go about my business. Well, maybe, but don't ever think that somebody's not going to question your hands holding that shovel, as in what you could have possibly did with that sort of thing. And if you went back home to go get the shovel, or did you pick it up elsewhere, or did you even have it in your car? Because no pickup truck was involved supposedly. Okay, so the timing, yes, timing being a factor again. I wonder in what form and fashion could even a shovel be used? Could a shovel be used on or against a child's body if that sort of thing took place? You tell me. What type of way would an individual possibly even use a shovel on a child's body if she's dead and gone? Because isn't a shovel used for digging purposes? I would love to know. Let me ask you a question, dear viewer, as you're watching me, and we all questioning this and analyzation. Do you know anyone close to you, or within your family, or extended family, or even family and friends, or business associates, or even their business associates? Do you know any of them that drive around with a shovel in their car? And I don't mean a plastic shovel. No, I mean a metal shovel, known for digging. Who do you know anywhere amongst you that you associate with, or those people associate with, or even those people associate with, that drive around with a shovel in their car? Tell me. Write it in the description. Write it in the comment section below, not the description section. I should in fact ask that question in my description section, because that's what? A shovel? I don't know anybody amongst me that drives around with metal shovels and not plastic. And again, in wintertime, in the states of where I lived as well as traveled, there have been people that have driven and rode around in the wintertime and not in the summer with plastic shovels in their trunk in case they get stuck in the snow. Because again, snow in those states, yes, of where I'm from, in fact, the snow comes up very high. Sometimes it could be up to your waist. And once again, North Carolina during that time and that season of February 14, 2000, the snow was not high like that. So what was the point of the shovel in the car? So let me see. I had to throw that plastic in because I'm like, okay, it wasn't no snow. Even if somebody wanted to say, well, maybe they had a plastic shovel in their trunk so that they can get out of the snow. But there wasn't no snow. There was no thick foot or even inches in snow. It was in fact torrential rain going on. If there was snow, we would have heard that there was snow. And the shovel will be less questionable, or possibly even more questionable. I don't like that. And this whole thing, it irritates me and it bothers me. All this mess has taken place in a rural environment. That's to say that metal had to in fact be there in the form of a shovel. Because see, various manly men, and not more so women, are known to be catering to a rural environment, as in the upkeep, as in cutting grass, as in tearing things down, possibly tearing down a tree in the backyard with their own hands. Because many men that live out in rural environments, depending on how skilled they are known to tear down trees and shrubs and all that with their bare hands, instead of calling a city or something like that all the way out to a rural area to handle that sort of thing. You would in fact do that sort of thing yourself. So that's to say tools have to be involved, such as manly, masculine metal tools, and not plastic. There's no way no plastic is going to be cutting down some trees or digging up some stuff, digging up earth and all that other stuff. And possibly even not went planting garden and flowers and all that, because women get into that sort of thing. Planting gardens and all that other stuff. Women are known to use even small little metal shovels with even that sort of thing. A garden tool. Women are known to, when they live out in rural environments and plant stuff, they like to use small tools such as that. Picking up the earth so that they can plant their flowers or whatever down, or their seeds down, and spring forth some water so that it can grow up, right? I don't think even Asia herself will be able to do something like that. That's because the leveling of how she would have dug the whole thing as in the environment itself. Asia, if she would have used, say, a garden tool that, say, her mother possibly could have had, Asia's mother, a garden tool or something, it's to say even that leveling process would have been off, and even Asia trying to do that sort of thing out in the mud. The garbage bag and everything would have been hanging halfway out or something. Would have even a hump. I could even see a hump hanging out or something. And her putting the bag down into the ground, but not completely enough to even make sure that it's padded down or something. Even if she stood on it or stepped on it to make sure it was down, I could still see something somewhat leveled up and not all the way in the ground. A young child don't think like that, as in calculating. No, they don't. They would have to be guided in even that, burying their own bag or something crazy. So, I can't see Asia even, yes, I couldn't see Asia using even a garden tool. Women are known to live out in rural environments as well and get their hands dirty, possibly not real manly. But if she's living in an environment that the upkeep is needed, and say city workers are not keeping up the upkeep, it's a no, woman is going to have to do it herself. Even out there, whether cutting the grass, I just said that before, or digging up stuff, because you're messing with natural earth, which has to be teared apart and uprooted by something. You're not going to use your hands, a grown woman, even if she's a homeowner. And not only that, you're not going to use something flimsy in the flimsy department of plastic material. Getting rid of weeds or something, needing a weed whacker to get the bushes out of your yard. All that supplies has to in fact be metal. And manly, sturdy metal at that. It's not going to be soft, because even that could give way. That could in fact give way if it's plastic material and you're digging in stuff or trying to cut off something with a weed whacker. Even weed whackers are known to have, because we used to have a weed whacker where you pull out that string. When you turn it on, the motor, whatever, moves the plastic piece around inside it. It's like it looks like a string, but it's not. It's made of all thin plastic, right? But it spins so quickly. It spins extremely quickly, just enough to cut the weeds off of a tree, right? Not off of a tree, but off some bushes. Is known to, in fact, not bushes. Why am I saying that? The edges of the grass is what weed whackers. I mean, it could be used for anything, because even that's multi-purpose. To use a weed whacker is to say you can use that in multi-purpose, which is why people use things for multi-purpose. And that plastic string that goes inside of it or whatnot is for weed purposes. It's plastic, but once you turn up the motor on something and get the speed going, it's to say you never know what that could in fact, what damage that could do, even to your finger. If I was put my finger to that, right? Possibly put a laceration there, as in cut through my skin, but not all the way. You never know. But I'm thinking to dig and all that other stuff, you need something more heavy duty and sturdy. And I don't think plastic would fit into that. I just don't. Such as a plastic shovel or something. I can't see that sort of thing happening. I don't know why. Because see, mud is sludgy. Is that a word? Or did I just make that up? I think mud is in fact sludgy. Like how slushy is. How it's wet and gooey somewhat. But it's water. Prone to leave water behind and all that other stuff and get the splashing or something. I'm thinking a plastic shovel would be more slippery in the mud more than anything than a actual wet metal, possibly sharp shovel or something. Something about that. The plastic aspect. Because I can even see that visually as in a shovel going down plastic, possibly meeting earth, and say if it will be slippery meeting that mud. I just because of the whole set as in the foothill of the environment, of a rural environment. I just can't see a plastic shovel taking place in that. I can only see metal. Because you're in a heavy duty environment which need heavy duty equipment, and tearing up things or even building things up, which is why I'm thinking grown men wouldn't be having plastic shovels to their disposal. They will more so have manly metal things. And I just stated that. Even if they drove a 4x4 truck, which has been known in them environments of you driving a 4x4 truck and you're mounting a shovel, say to the hood, not to the hood, to the top of your pickup truck. That's why 4x4 trucks and all that other stuff, vehicles, that's why they sometimes have those sort of things, or you can buy them and mount equipment such as heavy metal equipment on the top of your vehicle if you want to do off-road and you get stuck or something. That's why a shovel would be there, but once again, you're not going to do off-road in a Lincoln 1973 Lincoln Continental. So that in itself is the configuration is off. Something about that is complete opposite or something. That's to say, if you're living in a more masculine, manly environment full of green details, or such as forestry and all that other stuff, country, rural, that's to say metal had to in fact be there, including the shovel itself, and not plastic. No. Because see, at any time, not even with a vehicle, but at any time, something can happen out there at any time of the day where something mess up, or something could get stuck. Any type of thing could get stuck, and you're going to need a metal piece to get you out in place of a plastic. Say if that 1973 Lincoln Continental did go off-road or something. Let me just use that example. Or 1973 Ford Thunderbird. Say if they did drive off-road somewhere, because the Turner upholstery shed was somewhat off the road, so that will be like considered off-road, but I don't know if it had gravel or something. But say if that Lincoln or something did get stuck somewhere, it will possibly more than likely need a shovel to get out of something, such as a ditch or something. That car, if it got off-road somewhere, it would in fact need something to dig it out. So that once again, that shovel does in fact stand questionable. It does. I'm going at it at every angle, which could leave even you, the viewer, confused, but I'm trying to see what is the point of the shovel in an old car like that. If that old car is not doing off-road excursions, what's the meaning and purpose of that? That don't fit, but yet it ties in with even all this. Hold on. The only way I can see Asia herself, when somebody questioned, well, maybe Asia buried her bag, and I said possibly not, because there was no lighting. There was no lighting for the child, and she didn't have a flashlight. The only way I could see a young Asia burying her bag is if, say, that contracting crew, the construction crew, say, left tools on the actual lot of that land of where the actual building and all that was going to take place, whether they were going to build a home there or a road. If the construction crew left tools such as metal tools, such as a shovel and all that on the actual lot, then I can see the child possibly burying it. But to be that afraid of dark is to say that poses an issue. She can't see just enough to dig for herself. And not only that, I'm thinking that area would have been a ways away from the road, and a ways away possibly from where she ran into the woods. You got to scope out a measurement. How far away was the road from the trees, and how far away were the trees from where that bag was found and buried? That more likely is possibly a ways away where the bag was buried was possibly more so a ways away, had to be, from where the child ran into the woods. Because see, look, if any contractor or construction crew left a shovel out on the premises, that's to say that that could possibly have taken place by Asia herself. Buried her bag and then got in somebody's car, right? But there still was no lighting on the premises. There was no lighting. There possibly could have been a sign showing individuals, just whoever would pass amongst the premises. There possibly had to have been a contracting sign of, say, they're going to be a newly developing something being built there. I'm thinking a sign had to have been placed there in the first place of something. But I still can't see a construction crew, a construction or even a one-man crew just leaving a shovel out there. I can't see that, because see, that poses a liability issue. Yes, it would. I'm thinking, even because some people think and some people don't, I shouldn't be a contractor and leave a shovel out on the premise of where I'm working at. Because in the middle of the night, a hitchhiker or somebody could come along and get that tool, such as a shovel, and whack somebody over the head. And that could be part of a whole crime scene mess that now that contractor done got involved into and didn't even know that sort of thing played out. You see where I'm going with that? Which is why I'm thinking a contractor couldn't have left a shovel out there. Even the FBI would need to have to, if they didn't already do that, question of if they left a shovel out there. Because that's why I'm questioning it. I'm questioning it at every single direction, at every angle, despite me sitting right here. I'm questioning, could have a shovel been even left out right there where the contractors was working on whatever land for something to be built, of where Asia's bag was found buried. Because if any person walked up and said they had some form of mental illness or something crazy, or they were just a serial killers, I believe and can sense that even serial killers have to have a killer mental illness mindset. Something about them is not right to just brutally kill somebody and leave blood everywhere and then just walk away, right? So I'm thinking a contractor wouldn't want even that on his hands, knowing he's in the environment of where hitchhikers are prone to be, truckers are prone to be, as well as mass murders and serial killers and all that other stuff. Possibly not mass murders in that environment, but they know that killings do in fact take place. You don't know how a shovel could be used in the form of even murder, leading to a crime scene, even you leaving out and then leaving a shovel right there laying in the dirt or something for somebody to come along and say possibly kill somebody out on Highway 18, and there now the contractor has to go to court himself because he didn't take it upon himself to put the shovel away. And not only that, he's dragged into something because a child was dragged into something and possibly even dragged to murder the child. So I'm thinking the contractor wouldn't have left a shovel out there. I don't think. But we have to still question that, because that fits right in. Asia would have needed lighting for that. Because usually when people leave and even a business operates, usually when people leave off a land, a construction site, usually business operating period, usually once a business establishment is closed, is to say all lights go out. If even McDonald's, as anybody that has drove past a McDonald's, we all know where McDonald's is located at, city and state to state, wherever we drive, and sometimes off of interstate. If that is in fact if that McDonald's is not a 24-hour McDonald's, you can say more than likely the lights would in fact be dim in the process of you trying to see, well, is the McDonald's closed? Well, all the lights is off. See what I'm saying? So a contractor, I'm thinking, more than likely the lights had to be dim, even if Asia wanted to bury her stuff herself. That's to say no lights was there, as in all lights were out. Blown out, possibly even in that. So the land, I'm saying, the contractor, the construction area, all that working environment area, there would have been no lighting in even that, because once business is gone and everything is out of operation for the day is to say the workers are gone as well as the lights being turned out for the night. Hold on. So I'm thinking, where did that person go home to get the shovel if they didn't plan everything? If they didn't plan everything and say, if whoever say if they killed Asia, if they didn't plan that and it was just an accidental, or say they were just a murderer and nobody knew that they was a murderer, and they came along and presented Asia some foul play of just killing her or something, where did they go to get that shovel? Where did they go to get the shovel? Did they go back home? Because see, that is so important. Recognize, I'm saying in the recognition aspect of where I'm going, where people think I'm a know-it-all. To say that you had to go back somewhere is to say you live in the same area. Even if you didn't even know the family. Dear FBI, if somebody had to go back and get a shovel, it's to say they still live in that community and possibly even today. And possibly not even, they're going possibly undetected by even FBI, the chief of police, and even sheriff. Of me calling out the shovel aspect. If the family had nothing to do with this, and say the girl's life being possibly taken wasn't committed by the family and them planning, as well as them throwing a shovel, say, into their trunk and driving out there to bury everything and possibly even her body and strawing everything along the family, I'm saying, if they had nothing to do with that, that's to say that another individual had to have did that sort of thing, and they have to have lived and still possibly do, maybe if they didn't move away, they had to have lived in that same environment. Because to know you need a shovel is to know, I'm thinking you wouldn't be driving state to state. Say if somebody lived and they drove somewhere after the crime was committed, and they drove and they moved away or lived away, they still would have to go back home in the same environment where all this mess took place to go move their things out of state. But not only that, the shovel aspect, that's to say, yes, you're not going to say go back home, move out, move all your stuff out of state. Somebody would have saw you moving. They might not have known you committed the crime, but they would in fact have saw you moving truck or something, moving all your stuff out. But somewhere in that, I just keep seeing that. If it wasn't the family and somebody else had something to do with that, and say they didn't plan it, and say they didn't plan it, and say them running into Asia was by accident, and say them killing her, say they killed her whether on purpose or by accident, but it wasn't planned, that's once again to say they had to go back home for a shovel. They had to go somewhere for that shovel. Because to be a family and plan something is to say you know where you're going to put the shovel into the car, and possibly at what time in the night air, driving even Asia in her body, if that was her family. But if the family had nothing to do with it, that's to say another individual has something to do with that, and they more than likely possibly didn't live out of state, because that shovel had to have stood somewhere. I can't see nobody in their right mind traveling along on an interstate, or even taking a rural highway such as Highway 18, which leads to possibly an interstate, and then getting on the road driving state to state with a shovel in their trunk. Because the average person know that once you get on the interstate, your trunk could in fact be searched. Your trunk could in fact be searched for not only drugs but something else, because many people that do drug trafficking in fact get in trouble by the law from them even trafficking drugs, such as putting that sort of thing in their trunk, and FBI, police, and even state highway patrolmen randomly pulling cars over to check the trunk to make sure there's no drugs there. You see what I'm saying? Am I going even against the law by even telling what FBI and sheriff are known to do in their search for drug trafficking, when they randomly pull cars over and you don't think that they're going to pull you over because you don't know that right now is the time for them to see what cars are coming through certain states certain states where cars are randomly driving through states, and say a highway state patrolman, as in you driving a 1973 Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird, want to pass through, and say get randomly stopped by a state highway state patrolman, and him wanting to check your car and your trunk to see if drugs could be there, or even in the rear of your car or something crazy like that. They usually go for the trunk, because to know that a trunk is more big and less compact is to know more drugs could in fact be stored there. So where was this individual possibly living in state and somewhere around Shelby in Burke County having a shovel? Because even that individual would have known what I just stated, as in them possibly committing something like that. They would have had to have in fact gotten rid of the car, and possibly very quickly, if they knew FBI and the sheriff and all them was looking for that car. There's no getting on no interstate, driving no state to state after somebody done put out some type of Amber Alert and a missing child alert over a green car, knowing the majority of Americans in society back in 2000 wasn't riding around with those old raggedy cars. That car would in fact be seen because it has the hump on the back of it. Either model, Ford or Lincoln, has that hump on the back of the hood, on the back of the car, on the trunk of the car, and that aspect is telling as well. As in a person possibly killing a young child, say the police or whoever would have put out that car, portrayed it to the media, mass media at that, and portrayed it all around America, and possibly on the outside of America, as in the outskirts, global level, even in Mexico, Europe, or wherever they show Asia's face along with the car, and the reward statement with that, showing off the car. That's to say an individual had to get rid of that car very quickly and not be driving and riding around state to state trying to hurry up and get away. Because there's even helicopters that fly amongst you which would have in fact seen that sort of thing. There's helicopters, police helicopters, FBI helicopters, sheriffs and all them that are known and prone to fly helicopters when we don't even see that they're doing it, even across rural roads and interstates where they would even meet eye to eye with somebody who would have did an abduction of, say, even them seeing the car. Yes, that long car. Remember, this was 2000 and not 1973. In the process, somebody would have seen that car is what I'm trying to say. So somebody would have had to, in fact, destroy that car, and possibly pretty quickly. And the only way to do that is to not be leaving and running out of state, because remember, you got to use an interstate or possibly a rural road. But I'm thinking you would want to get on the interstate very quickly, and even that as in getting away, to go run off and destroy a car. So if that sort of thing didn't take place, because trust and believe, to run on an interstate or on any rural road, to leave out of state to go drifting into another state to hide a car away, is to say even a highway state patrolman can be seen state to state as even a follow tag along. And even that, a state highway patrolman would have seen that sort of car somewhere along. Because remember, to issue an Amber Alert on a missing child is to know even they would in fact be looking out for that car. And the suspect as well, because highway state patrolmen, they even stick around sometimes behind trees, as in drifting cars drifting along on highways a little bit too fast, or even within the law itself as going the speed limit. But even if one of them seen one of those cars, they would in fact, a state patrolman would have in fact pulled that green car over. There's no getting past the law in even that. Don't think that you're going to commit a crime and then go get on the interstate and think not one of those individuals are going to see you, no matter what state it is in fact in. Because even the highway state patrolmen, they're in fact working with FBI pertaining to even missing children. That's what an Amber Alert is for even them to sit on the side of the highway when even that sort of thing take place, missing children, to see could anybody leave out. You don't know where any of them might have been called in to sit at an actual, not border, but the state line, to see if somebody could be passing through with a missing child. You don't know that. So don't ever think you're going to be leaving out somewhere. I kidnap a child and leave out on a state line of an interstate or even a rural road, and don't think that a highway state patrolman is going to be meeting and greeting you on the outside somewhere. I'm sure they're known and prone for even that sort of work. You don't know. It could be clock timing, and even that, as in them sitting there somewhere by a state line, and them even rotate in position of them changing during times, taking lunch breaks, and somebody else ordered to go sit out there. You don't know. So don't even try to take a kidnapped child, or don't try to even kidnap a child, is what I'm trying to say. You don't know how any of these individuals work on the team of sheriff, police, and even state patrolmen. That car would have been seen by even one of them somewhere. Even if that car drifted and ended up one state over or something. Somebody somewhere would have in fact seen that car, because leave out a crime scene, yeah, it's to say that individual had to have leave out after 4:30 going into 5 a.m. I'm thinking the precise timing of say the when the crime took place, because to say you seen Asia somewhere around 4 a.m. and say you're going to bury a bag and possibly strewn along her things along Highway 18, as well as put a pencil and a green marker, as well as a Mickey Mouse hair bow next to Turner upholstery, or within the actual shed itself, Turner upholstery, it's to say even timing played in that. I'm thinking somewhere possibly 4:30, 5 a.m. Because if an eyewitness said they seen her, and not only that, that one eyewitness, we count him in, the one that came coming around 3 times in a circular fashion, that's timing as well. That throws the child's footing timing off after she done ran into the woods to try to come back out to meet somebody in the green car. So I'm thinking, if that in itself took time around the 4 a.m. of say seeing her, that in itself is sketchy, that eyewitness, of her coming back out of the woods with no light, no flashlight, no headlights, no fog light, nothing, coming out of the woods. It's a safe for her to walk a little bit, possibly even further, to meet that 1973 Continental Lincoln or 1973 Ford Thunderbird, and then say after whoever else seen her eyewitness getting into that car, you still have to calculate time even in that. How long did it take for that individual to say drop her off somewhere? The driver, 1973 Lincoln Continental, how long did it calculate in even that to drop her off somewhere? To not only drop her off, whether alive or dead, take her off somewhere, and then come back and say bury her bag, as well as plant those 3 things I stated, pencil, green marker, and strewn all the stuff, her candy wrappers along Highway 18. How much time was in that? That's not 4:30, that's more like 5 a.m. Somewhere 5 a.m., maybe 5:15, 5:20, a person possibly had to have pulled out, leaving out even in the crime scene, or possibly even further back than that. Could have been 5:30, 5:30, 5:45, because I'm thinking in order to rape and molest a child, if that sort of thing took place, that sort of thing possibly took time as well, and I don't think would have been done really quickly, or maybe it would have. So I'm thinking the mess probably would have been over, even in possibly killing Asia. All this would have been over with if it was done by a random man, and even a 1973 car. That would have all been over with somewhere around 5:45, as in them just cleaning their hands and going on by their business or something. 5:45, 5:35, 5:45, because I'm thinking that would have given that person possibly a good enough hour to take her somewhere, possibly rape her, and maybe even kill her, or something crazy like that, and then go back and bury the bag, as well as strewn the candy wrappers on Highway 18, and place the pencil, the green marker, and the Mickey Mouse hair bow at Turner Upholstery Shed. That's a timing factor in that. 5:45, I'm thinking. 5:35, 5:45. Because seeing all this, the girl had to make her way out of the woods. To become trapped in some woods is to say how long did it take for even her to come out of the woods. That has to be factored in. Right? So if that has to be factored in, then where does a person go back to even say rape a child? Do they rape her in the car at 4 a.m.? See, even that has to be questioned. Do they go pull off somewhere and rape a child and possibly kill her right then? Despite them meeting her by accident and meeting her with foul play by accident or possibly purpose, because I don't think that aspect was planned. This outside man and not the family, I don't think that part was planned. No, I don't. I don't think so. I think that was more likely possibly accidental. Say him running into her by accident, not with the car, but taking her off somewhere and then possibly raping her and maybe even killing her. But not only does now he have to bury her back, but he possibly has to get rid of the dead body as well if say she's dead and gone, right? He would have had to did that sort of thing. That sort of thing takes time as well. Because to bury something like that as in an individual and say you may want the bag to be found but not her body to be found, is to say that sort of thing is possibly would have taken much more longer and even burying her. That's why this whole thing is crooked and messed up. The layer aspect, because see, look, it points two ways. It either points to the family could have did it or that individual with that green 1973 car. Because see, that's to say that individual had to have in fact scope out the location. Yes, scope out the location or something before. Because how do you just, unless that man just say somewhat knew the environment and just pick some random area to even possibly bury a dead child's body, or say where the contractor and all them was not going to look, as in something going undetected, as even where you buried her. You see what I'm saying? To put a bag somewhere and want that bag, such as a child's book bag, is to be found, is to say you could in fact put the child somewhere but somewhere else, as in her body being undetected, because even a dead body would in fact carry evidence such as semen and everything else in between, if say he would have raped her. Which is why more than likely a criminal would in fact want to get rid of a dead body and not just bury it along with a bag and then want the body to be found, knowing that semen could have in fact be found inside of her and his semen on top of that. That's why it points in two directions of, could the father have did it, or the mother have did it to cover themselves, or could this random man, yes, random, driving a 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird, could he have did it? Because I know you're going to ejaculate into the inside walls of a 9-year-old's vaginal area, is to say evidence such as that would in fact be there. Unless a grown man himself wore a condom, and even that. But I'm thinking guys that be jacking off and all the other whatever, even pertaining to killings and all that, I'm thinking they wouldn't even care about a condom. Because see, to even disrespect a young child's space, as even possibly getting her in your car and beating her or something crazy, and then killing her, is to say if you kill her, you didn't respect her to begin with. And not only that, raping her, that's no respect there as well. Which is to say you possibly are not going to use a condom, and even that. You would in fact possibly bypass the condom, as in if that man did that sort of thing. There's no respect there in taking advantage of a child and then killing a child. So if there's no respect in that, that's to say there will be no respect in even semen going up inside of her by ways of your penis, you being a man or something like that. You wouldn't respect. So why use a condom, I'm thinking. So to bury even that evidence is to throw the girl's body away somewhere and put it possibly where nobody would even ever look, not even FBI themselves. I wonder if FBI sheriff or chief of police ever went inside of the wooded area. that wooded area, somewhere inside the wooded area, and possibly right next to the wooded area, right? Or even on the other side of the wooded area. A body possibly could even be found, and a body of Asia's could possibly even be found. Yes, even Asia herself. Because if you're going to bury a bag, that in itself, in fact, represents death. But not only that, woods can be areas of which possibly sometimes individuals are not known to completely search. Sometimes FBI and search and rescue themselves. Because there's certain areas of wooded areas that are hard to get into. Not the actual woods, that too, the woods in which Asia ran into, but the wooded area side by side that fit on each side of where she ran into. There could be more woods to that. Because I'm thinking, if a person would have buried the child out there where the contractor was doing their work, then that's to say a body could have been found, right? But not completely, because somebody could have buried her body somewhere in the dirt where somebody such as FBI or whoever would have never known to look, and just patch whatever up neatly to make it look like and seem that nobody buried anything there in the first place. That girl body could be anywhere, standing amongst you or I anywhere, and yet I'm not even in the same state. When I say you or I mean the public. Even the public that's living in that state of where she was supposedly taken from. There's public recognition in me calling you out, as in I see you there, but I don't. I see myself looking in the camera, but I know you, the viewer, is possibly watching me after, or will after I upload this. Yes, in some states that, in fact, you don't want to be on nobody's interstate driving along. I wouldn't even want to be on a rural road unless I lived in that same state environment with a shovel in the back of my car, especially a 1973 car. And if I'm black, no way. I'm just saying, and I'm a black male or something. See, it could be a white male or a black male, who knows? But I'm thinking a black male, I'm thinking he would in fact think to himself, I'm not going to keep a shovel in my car knowing that I'm a black male and I can be pulled over by police or state highway patrol at any time, whether I'm in a rural road or on an interstate. I don't think a black male will want to ride around with a shovel in his car unless, say, he is a family member and he has something to do with that and he planned it and he put the shovel in the car right before, or he put the shovel in the car as he was leaving, going to, say, bury the bag and possibly bury the child. A white man will have better chances of rolling around in a 1973 with a shovel in the back of his car because, see, a white man will have better chances rolling around with that sort of thing in his car because the actual shade of his complexion of being white, and say if he get pulled over and say it's a white officer wanting to see what is in his trunk just randomly, can I check your trunk or something, just to check it for any purpose, there will be an issue of a black male rolling around with a shovel in his trunk. He might in fact go to jail, because to be black and have a shovel in your trunk is to say FBI or police looking at that shovel sitting in your trunk is to say something could have happened as in a gang war, a gang feud, a gang anything or anything. Because even Crips and Bloods are happening today. Something could have happened where you possibly may have killed somebody, you being black male figure or even woman, and you got a shovel sitting in the back of your car. Don't think a police officer would think about that sort of thing. Why is a shovel in your car, dear black man or woman? Why is a metal shovel sitting in your car, right? So a white man, he would more likely be able to bypass a law if a white officer pulled up and say, can I check your trunk? And a metal shovel is sitting there. Because that white man will think, well, he possibly live in this area, or he's just passing through and he's from another state and he needs to shovel possibly for something of getting stuck or something. Because even white officers or whatever, some of them do stuff such as they get into forestry and all that other type of stuff, traveling outside and exploring. So those two would in fact relate more so than, say, a white officer meeting the face of a black man and him having that black man having a shovel in his car. That's not going to look right. That black man might in fact go to jail that day or that night, let me tell you. And that's not discrimination. It's in fact the truth in that. So I'm thinking a black man would in fact possibly would, if he did have something to do with that and say he planned it, then part of the planning process would more than likely would have been to put the shovel in his car that night and not be riding around in the daytime with it, knowing that him being black could be, what is that, driving while black? Is that what it's called? DWI? Is it called driving while black? Getting pulled over, even in rural areas, by police officers, them just wanting to pull you over based off you being black. So black men would in fact have wanted to put the shovel in his car and with his plan at night, say if the family has something to do with it, and not put the shovel in his car before, because he know and more than likely would have been paranoid, let me not let this shovel meet my trunk of my car. Yes, in the daytime. It would in fact have to go in his car at night, just in case he got pulled over. And more than likely, he would have wanted to get that shovel out of his car and not leave it there. A black man, even if it was somebody in Asia's family, would have not wanted to allow that shovel to stay there, because now not only do you have evidence of, say, the bag's material possibly being ripped and stuck on the shovel somewhere, but now you got evidence of, say, the mud on the shovel. And not only that, you got some trace of yourself being in a car, being black and male with a shovel with all that detail sitting in your car, which can possibly point to a crime. Knowing that even black men are pulled over in their car. So a black man will more than likely take a shovel out and possibly get rid of even that. Even if the shovel had blood on it. But a white man, I can't really say what he would have did. Those type of individuals, I'm thinking, is to say he possibly, if he was white and he was country and he lived in that area, because I'm thinking whoever did this had to have lived in the area and not out of state or something. Not skip states either. I'm thinking that if he was a white man, he possibly would have washed that shovel off or something, or cleaned it off and possibly even reused it. And that's not to say white men don't care about those sort of things, such as blood or rip pieces of a book bag or something, or you never know. When I say rip pieces, because you don't know, I'm just using rip pieces of a book bag for example. To dig something is to know that the book bag didn't have access with the shovel until the book bag was placed into the ground, right? But I just use that for example. You never know what type of evidence. That's why I used it for example. You never know what type of evidence would in fact be on that shovel. Even if it was in the form of Asia blood from her head or something, being cracked upside the head with it. But I could still see a manly figure, possibly older white man, say, just rinsing the shovel off or even cleaning it. Because I'm thinking even he would know how to whatever do that sort of thing. And getting rid of evidence and possibly even reuse the shovel if he lived in that area. I don't think a white man is going to, say, kill somebody, even if the opposite race and sex, and then possibly let a good shovel go to waste. You gotta remember, some of these individuals, when I say good, it sounds sickly, right? When I say good shovel go to waste, because many of these individuals, they were born before you and I, many of the viewers, they're generations before us. So they don't really like to waste stuff. They don't really like to waste stuff. And not only that, some of them individuals have been around. I don't think he was that old. I don't think that individual would have been around since the Great Depression, because see, the Great Depression was in 1930 or 1931 or 1932. But even people that grew up in the Great Depression and they lost everything and didn't have everything, many of them passed down to their children to not let good things go to waste. even if it's rotten stuff, such as bread with mold on it. So I'm thinking if his parents was around during the Great Depression, they might have even told that older man, say if he was white or even black, who knows? I could see a white man more than anything keeping a shovel after he killed somebody, because he more than likely was possibly taught by his parents, don't let good things go to waste. Because to kill somebody and then bury something with a shovel, if the shovel had blood on it, or maybe if it didn't, just in burying the child's bag, is to say, despite you burying a child's bag, in the eyes of somebody that had parents that was around during the Great Depression, they would still see that shovel as something good, despite evil being done with the shovel. They ain't gonna want to just throw the shovel away, I don't think. They possibly might not keep it if that was a white male that used a shovel. A black male will be more likely paranoid if he's not a psychopath. I'm thinking a psychopath, if he was black, he possibly would keep the shovel, who knows? But if he's a right-thinking individual and he just killed the child, even if it was in the family that killed the child, I'm thinking he will be paranoid enough to get rid of the shovel. And possibly take it to a landfill or somewhere else out of the wherever location of where the home life took place. But a white male that didn't live in the home and had no possible attachment to the home, and say really wasn't into the child personally like that, say as in getting to know them every day or being around them, or whatever the situation, I don't think, even if they did, I don't think they would get rid of the shovel. You don't know, because if they're still out there, they're more likely they're still living in a rural area, and I don't think that individual would have I'm saying a white male, I don't think he would have threw the shovel away and went and bought a new shovel. I think he would have cleaned it off and reused it, because to be in a rural environment is to know you used the shovel once, but you possibly was using it before, possibly years before, and you're going to need to use it again to dig up stuff while you're out there or something, pertaining to even a backyard or something like that. Grown men dig up stuff in their backyard or need tools like that in their possession at all time of the day, just in case. And fixing up stuff. Building, because many of them do that out in that area, building up, I don't know, what do grown men build out in rural areas with wood and stuff, where you would need a shovel in your possession and not throwing it away just because you killed somebody and used it to bury their things, such as a book bag. I'm thinking he would have more likely kept it, the shovel. And it could more likely still be in that individual's possession still today, or maybe not, if say they went and they destroyed that car, that 1973, whatever it was. If they went and destroyed it, maybe they could have destroyed the shovel with the car. See, all this is pointing in different directions, as in a zigzag where I'm taking you, and even me trying to find out the possibilities, because I'm all about possibilities anyways. To have a mind to question possibilities is to ask 50 million questions of what could have been and what couldn't have. So if you didn't keep the shovel, dear man, whoever did whatever, what did you do with it? If say you were the individual, and say Asia did get into the car, and say you wanted to destroy not only the car but destroy the shovel as well, did you put the car as well? Did you put the shovel in the trunk of the car and say what? Took the car and pushed it into some water and let it sink down somewhere? Somewhere that car has to be somewhere, even in 2018, as in the whereabouts. I don't think the car was taken to a body shop, because even VIN number would point into that. And not only that, somebody at that body shop would in fact have recognized, because see, to take a car somewhere such as a 1973 and do a full mechanicalized overbody, as in overdraft the whole body of the car, pull pieces off the car to whatever, or repaint or something, somebody somewhere would have seen something like that. But I'm thinking a killer or criminal would in fact hurry up and want that sort of thing off their hands, such as a car itself. What other way would you get rid of a car? By destroying it. You could set fire to it, but somebody would in fact see you doing that somewhere. Yes, they would. They'll be like, oh my gosh, riding past. Even if you took it out in the backwoods, somebody on an ATV or something would came along rolling, or somebody on a truck or some off-road driving would have seen somebody burning up their own car, or just seeing a car on fire or something. And not only that, they would have seen the make and the model of the car to go back and report it to police about how a car was just sitting on fire. And there goes that 1973 Lincoln Continental, or 1973 or Ford Thunderbird. So that didn't happen, the incineration of a car. So it's the question, where could the car have been taken, and did the shovel go along with it? In the trunk. Could the shovel be still in the trunk of that car? You can't take a car like that, no, to a body shop. You can't do that because somebody would have seen that. Taking cars off, or even repainting the car, because I said VIN numbers is in that. Repainting the whole body of the car just because you paint it, don't think that FBI police is going to see into that. Because to do a nice thick paint job, even if it's black, blue, orange, purple, whatever, it's to say even police could scope even that out as in a new paint job on a old car. And not only that, it takes time. And the effort and time it will be put to restructure a whole body on a car that year, it's to say it will take some days, even possibly weeks, who knows? 2 weeks, I don't know how long it takes to repaint a car. But not only that, somewhere in the body shop, somebody once again would have seen the driver of the car, knew who owned the car and all that, and they would have came along, called FBI, and whoever would have gotten dragged over to the police office and documented and fingerprinted for that, the crime. So that's to say something else had to have been done with that car. Could have been pushed into some water and allowed to sink. Yes, even in that. And they had to have did that if they was still in the surrounding area. I'm thinking they still had to have did that somewhere before the sun set. As in hurried up, did the crime, hurried up, got out the atmosphere, and took the car and hid it somewhere. And then went off and destroyed it. Because see, you can't go commit a crime, walk away from the crime, then police is called by Asia's family at 6:39 on the 911 call about the girl being missing, and say that Ford be seen somewhere out on the road. That doesn't make sense. Something about that is off. I think police was even off when they put that out, that green car. Which is why stuff is not coming together specifically. They know what they're doing. Police and FBI know what they're doing. But something about even the timing of the car was off. And whoever being able to get away, and even possibly the destroying process of the car, the make and model of that car itself. Because to not put something out in a timely fashion is how some people go hidden, and even that as in them being able to get away. And them not being detected in a crime. A police putting out something too late of a car, a model, and then somebody having enough time to even get out of state with just that, the car. That poses an issue. And the whole thing poses an issue. I think the green car was yes, the green car, I'm thinking that was a tip by an eyewitness. But I can't completely decipher the actual timing, because see, even that I think was a little bit off, or was it, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm right on time, and maybe police was right on time when they stated the vehicle of which Asia was seen getting into, the 1973 green Lincoln Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird. Because even if that time was off, as that came out later, such as that tip, then that throws the whole game off. It would. And it does. If in 2000, because see, I was busy doing a whole bunch of stuff, I didn't find out about Asia till later, because she wasn't everywhere seen being broadcasted, right? The way that I think that she should have been. But say even if police was off in the timing of them putting out to the public the actual make and model of the car, that would allow the footing of a criminal to get far away and possibly even much more further away, and even be possibly in another whole different state in the opposite direction or something crazy, and still could possibly even have that car and another car. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm questioning, because it something is off. The shovel aspect, yes, carrying a shovel would be considered almost illegal. That sort of thing could in fact pose a problem. I'm thinking the police or FBI wouldn't even, or even highway state patrolmen wouldn't want an individual riding around with a shovel in the trunk of their car, because even on the interstate, sometimes police and sheriff and all of them, highway state patrolmen, sometimes highway state patrolmen, police, or FBI, or whoever is rolling out on interstate, keeping and maintaining that, is prone to get in arguments and fights on the road. Somebody can pop their trunk and use a shovel as a weapon, even against somebody such as police or highway state patrolmen, which is why you wouldn't want to have a shovel in your car in the trunk to begin with. Traveling, that sort of thing. A shovel, once again, belongs in a garage or a shed. It belongs in a garage of a home, or a shed of a home, or a possible business shed. Or it could possibly belong in the inside, the four walls of a home, in the basement. A shovel could belong anywhere, but it does not belong inside of a car. No, never. Unless that's a pickup truck you are driving, going off-road 4x4, 4-wheel, whatever, with that, right? The driving aspect. Yep, I said that. That's why I kept bringing up, that's possibly why police and FBI thought that the individual was a, thought that the individual could have been a, I don't know why my steering wheel is blaring with the lighting. Hopefully that don't bother your eyes. But with that being said, I'm thinking that's why the police thought that was a woodsman or something, pertaining to what I just spoke on. They didn't say anything about the shovel, and yet I did. Because that shovel pointing in the direction of a woodsman is to say a woodsman may or may not. A woodsman might not have did the crime. It could have been back home towards Asia home. Or in the family. Yes, but I'm thinking back in the four walls of Asia home. Somebody, see, you wouldn't need a woodsman, because if you done lived over there for a long time, it's to know you would know how to get around that area even at 4 a.m. To live in an environment for years on end is to say you could possibly even get out your car or something like that. Or something. I'm thinking a grown man would do that sort of thing more than a woman. Be in that environment and scope out, or even from your car. Because where I'm sitting at, I see a field right in front of me, right? And I see passing cars going, but I'm able to see it's open field. And then there's trees right here where I'm at. So I'm thinking that would only make sense that even if Asia's family lived in that area, possibly even before Asia was born, and maybe in that same home of where they lived, that's to say they could have known the environment very well as much. Even being able to climb and go through some trees or something like that. That didn't make sense to me when police said possible woodsman. Because see, even if Asia's family lived in that area, that's to say that even they could be considered woodsmen too. They're average, everyday individuals like you and I, but they're living in a rural environment you would need to know how to get into. But what if one of her parents grew up in even a household where, say, that sort of thing went down, and even them living in a rural household, or say them being taught how to even grow up in woods Not live in the woods, but how to chop down stuff and all, cut stuff and all. See, it had to look deeper than that, even pointing to family history, even Asia's family history. Her mother and father's side, how did they grow up, and was it in a rural environment? Because if a young boy, say if a father is a young boy growing up, and say he lived in a rural area himself, that's to know he would in fact know how to get around in even trees himself, even enough to go bury something or something. That just makes sense. It does. Because kids, when they grow up 13, 14, and they live in the country, and then later on they have kids and live in the country, that's to say they're able to get around and possibly have, when they were kids, just roaming around those sort of environments. So that would in fact be considered a woodsman as well, if Asia's father or mother grew up in that sort of environment when they were kids themselves. You have to question even that, the woodsman aspect. So, yes, we all can't know everything, but we can question everything. Because to say a woodsman could have did the crime, right? That's to say a person with more. I think FBI is saying that a woodsman could have been the person that did that because of how the bag was buried, yes, and how they moved on foot. But once again, even Asia's parents, somewhere in that, one of them could have grew up in that same sort of environment as a kid and just knew how to get around, as in travel around on foot. To even be an adult and move around and travel around in the same environment on foot. That's what I'm trying to say. One or the two. So I'm asking, moving on, I'm thinking, wouldn't a woodsman try to have motive enough in dropping Asia back off at home so she could be out of the rain and not taking her off away from home elsewhere? What type of, supposedly, if this was a woodsman and it didn't point back to Asia's home, what type of woodsman was this enough to not say take Asia and drop her back off either by her house or somewhere along the way by her house, and not just taking her off somewhere in a car? Let me see. If all was an accident and Asia being, say, hit by someone's car, because that was question 2. Was she hit by somebody or something? Say if that sort of thing was an accident. Somebody had questioned that on Reddit or whatnot before. I says, then I don't think Asia would have been seen supposedly getting into a Lincoln Continental or Ford Thunderbird, the 1973 car. If she was accidentally hit, I don't think she would have been seen getting into a car if she was hit by something. She would have never made her way there. See what I'm going with this? If Asia was actually seen getting into a car, I don't know why I keep thinking that she wasn't seen getting into that car. The eyewitness account might in fact be off. But say if she was getting into that 1973 car, Lincoln Continental, 1973, Ford Thunderbird, then she couldn't have been hit by that type of car. Which is why that aspect is questionable, why somebody would even ask that question on Reddit. Could she have been hit and killed by that car, and could have blood been on the road? Well, how is she able to be hit and killed by the same car she's getting into while she's being witnessed by an eyewitness of her getting into that same vehicle? How does that sort of thing take place? How are you seen getting into a car but also hit, killed, and ran over by the same car? You had to either have been hit and killed by that car, and then a cleaning process came with that. A little bit of blood would have been left somewhere on the road, but not completely, because the rain is known to wash stuff away, such as torrential. But how are you able to be hit and killed by that same car that you was once possibly seen getting into? That doesn't make sense. That in itself don't make sense. What was the point in the shovel? What is the point in the shovel? All that, with all that, and not only that, where would this man, if that was the truth, what will be the motive of not the woodsman or whoever had that 1973 car? Why wouldn't he want to just take Asia back home? Unless she told him something about what was going on at home. The only way I could see a motive of a man, if he wasn't a murder, carrying Asia off somewhere, and say possibly even murdering her later or something. The only way I could see him not taking her back home is if she told him something was going on at home, such as her being molested possibly by a father, or being beat on by a father, or being beat on by a mother, or something with her brother going on drastically bad at home, and him taking her off in his 1973 car, or him wanting to just rape her. And possibly because he raped her, now he don't have no choice but to kill her. Because now he don't know what to do with her. You can't just send her back home. So what do you do with the girl after you done raped her? After you done came across her accidentally on Highway 18? What do you do with the child after that? Say you rape her, and then what do you do? What do you do with the child? You have really no point but to kill her, because when she go home, she's going to in fact go tell FBI or police or chief of police what in fact you have done to her, such as taking advantage of her. If that sort of thing took place, she would have no choice, because they would want to know, why did you leave home? Why did you get in his car? And what did he do to you? See what I'm saying? That would in fact have to come out her mouth. Everything. All would have to come out of her mouth, which was why I questioned the family to begin with. Why would that make her leave her house? Why would anything make her leave her house? Because see, even all that would have been questioned even possibly in court, of why everything started to begin with. Why did she leave? Why did she go get in somebody else's car? There's a cause and effect. Yeah, how can a child be seen getting into a car unless that's off? I'm just saying unless somebody lied, such as an eyewitness. The only way that could be off is if an eyewitness lied about something somewhere. Even that aspect is telling. If you said you seen a child getting into a 1973 Ford Lincoln Continental, the only way I can see that you lied in that, you being an eyewitness, and you call into police, the only way I can see somebody lying in that is if they say they killed the child by purpose or accident, or if they struck the child by accident or on purpose, and they just threw that out there to police to take the eyes off of themselves, that they accidentally purposely killed the child by running her over or killing her in another way. Something about this whole thing is messed up. As in a drawing, I just drew a card where somebody else didn't see, or possibly may have seen but didn't say nothing, and yet I just chose to be the one to speak up. And even that, somebody had to have lied somewhere in what they saw or something. Because I'm thinking, even if you accidentally killed a child by accident, as in ran her over with your car, and say she didn't get into that 1973, but you lied and said that the car was a 1973 Lincoln Continental, a witness or whoever would have in fact possibly called in and said that to throw the attention off themselves or something, to make it not seem like they had something to do with it, whether the murder or whatever accidental killing, such as you running over a person, whether that sort of thing took place so that you wouldn't have to go to jail or something. Somebody would possibly lie in that. Will somebody do that, go as far as lying to police, calling in to give off another name of a car that was never there to begin with? Because how are you seeing wheel wells at night at 4 a.m. and you're driving almost 45, 55, possibly even 60 miles an hour on a Highway 18? How are you seeing wheel wells? So somewhere in this is in fact a lie or something. There's in fact a lie somewhere, and I can even see that aspect. There's a lie or something, because there's a jumping step. There's a jumping step in this, as in a lead and follow in that. There's a point A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and yet there's a lie somewhere. There's in fact a lie somewhere. Somebody somewhere is lying and not telling the truth. They have to be, because I can see it. If I zoom in and I'm known to connect the dots A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I could sit all day here myself for 20 something years calculating this mess and possibly see every lie of where somebody has stated a lie or something. I said that before. A 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird is not a off-road vehicle. That's not an off-road vehicle. No, it's not. A pickup truck is more so, or ATV is more so an off-road vehicle, because you have tendency to run into dirt, and then if you have a car sitting that low, a standard luxury vehicle such as a Lincoln sits between 3 to 4 inches off the ground. And to come up on some hilly part, as in a hill, you're going off-road and you hit a bump such as a hill, it's to know you're going to in fact be stuck. And a shovel may or may not get you off a hill. Who knows? And even that, because there's hills on off-road areas and possibly even ditches. Who knows? Yep, I said they could have borrowed the shovel from Turner Upholstery. Turner Upholstery will be considered private property, so that will be stealing if they did take the shovel off her, away from her shed. But something is off, and something is in fact a lie. There's a lie somewhere, because you're going from A to Z. You're not jumping. You're not quickly shifting, jumping here to jump there to jump there. And though I am jumping there, that's because her whole case is jumping everywhere. So I'm trying to follow in that. Here's a clue. Here's a clue. It's like I'm zigzagging to this, to this, to this, instead of going from A to Z. But I keep coming back to the car more than anything, the 73, as well as, 1973, as well as the shovel more than anything. Why Asia left in the first place. The car aspect, the shovel, as well as what happened to the car. Was it destroyed? That in itself is the A to Z pinpointing in that. Where is that car at today? And where is that shovel at? More than anything. Because see, I'm thinking even DNA or something would have to in fact possibly be on the shovel of something. I'm thinking that. I can sense even that in the trail. DNA with the crime scene, even DNA possibly could have been on that shovel. Or something. Could somebody have accidentally ran over Asia? Could somebody have accidentally ran over? Let's put the family to the side once again, because I still think that they had something to do with that. But say if they didn't, it helps to lead in even that, as in me scoping further. Could say somebody have accidentally ran Asia over with their car. I'm thinking accidental, right? Say it accidental and that. If they did that and say they were to cover themselves by ways of an eyewitness, by throwing police off, by putting another car there, such as a 1973 Lincoln Continental or a 1973 Ford Thunderbird, and yet that car possibly may not have even been there to begin with. That's my question. Because to know wheel wells can't really be seen in the dark, that's why I question that. You got to be really coming up on a car to see some wheel wells. And not only that, your whole attention focus more than likely will be on that child and possibly the driver more than it would be on some wheel wells. That's why that stands out to me so much. Somebody in this with that car. That the car situation is kind of off. The 1973 Lincoln car is in fact off. That is in fact a guideline all its own. Is off. That's telling the car itself something about it is not right. Because a wheel well, I'm sitting next to a car and I can barely see the wheel well. And yet this car is in fact sitting 3 to 4 inches off the ground, such as the grounding clearance of the car, right, is sitting off the ground like that, right? Off the ground. And yet a wheel well sits behind the wheel. And I'm sitting right next to the car and I can vaguely see the wheel well itself. Now, if the individual said they was talking about the wheel well liner, such as the actual outer liner, or say that sits outside, it sits out much more further than say the wheel itself, then that's to say that an eyewitness could have seen that, but not completely. Remember, what was your speed, as in what were you driving on that railroad highway 18? The speed limit is somewhere around 55, but even if you were traveling at 45, I still can't see you even seeing a wheel well liner even being rusted. Your focus will be completely and solely on that child, trying to be nosy enough like, man, what? You will be looking, I said that in my other 2 videos, you will be turning all the way around to make sure that, what is that? You may not see the driver. You may or may not see the driver. But you will more than likely be looking at that child. I just can't see a random driver coming up, see a child get into a 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird, and then them looking at the wheel wells. First, looking at the child because they're going to be nosy. That's human aspect, being nosy. Looking at the child in the dark while their headlights is shining on this whole mess. Them seeing a child get into a car. And then while they're doing it, they just all of a sudden look down at some wheel wells or a wheel well liner. Just accidentally look at it and then keep driving. I can't see that. No. I can see somewhere a driver turning somewhat slightly almost all the way around while they're driving, just enough to not fall off the road while they're paying attention to this child get into whoever's car, drifting at 45, whatever the mile speed limit they were driving. I can see them trying to see the child herself more so than the wheel well or even a wheel well liner. I just can't see that. Something somewhere is in fact a lie. And a genius mind like mine is able to see further even in that, in the examination process of what you're seeing and what you're saying that you're seeing and telling, but yet it possibly wasn't even there to begin with. A wheel well or a wheel well liner? Yes, a wheel well liner sits on the outside of a car and even much more further out than, say, the wheel itself. It's actually the dimension sits up and down. The wheel well liner will be here and the wheel will be there, but the wheel well will be right behind the wheel. But how are you seeing all this in the wet rain, torrential rain with windshield wipers? And say even if your window was rolled all the way up, looking at a child, looking to see if that's a child. Or was your attention more so on the wheels and the wheel well and the wheel liner of the child? Because if the attention was more so focused on the wheels than it was on that child, that's to say you might not have even saw a child to begin with. The focus has to be on one thing or the other. You can't have a focus on 2 things at one time. I can, but not most people. Not going at a speed, drifting along, trying to make sure you're trying to keep yourself on the road and not flipping the car over by looking at different things at one time. The focus has to be either on the road in front of you or somewhat looking slightly over to see if that is a child. And then while you're doing it, somewhat looking at the wheel wells, but there's even speed in that. You either saw that was a child while you were speeding at 45 or 50, whatever. You either saw that was a child, or you saw that was some rusted wheel wells or possibly rusted wheel well liners. You had to see one or the other. You couldn't have seen 2 going at full capacity speed. That is a no-go. I can see that that's a complete unadulterated lie or something. Something about that clue does not even fit. Because to have hands on the steering wheel is to say I better be making sure I'm paying attention while I'm driving this car, not to fly off the road, because I might flip over at my speed going 45, 50, or possibly even 55 while I'm trying to see if that's a child while looking at some wheel wells. To pass even that fast going past wheel wells or even wheel liners is to say, dear eyewitness, how could you even have seen that? You're passing through something. You're passing something, and not only that, you ain't right next to next, shoulder to shoulder with that sort of thing. And you're looking at a child on top of that. How do you see that? Something about that don't seem right. Because to me, I'm thinking if a person could see that much in the dark, drifting past somebody at a speed in torrential rain, knowing that your vision is obstructed on all sides of your car that you're in, that is going to impact your vision. But not only that, if you're seeing that, you should be able to see behind you, even in your mirror, as you're driving past and you're looking back somewhat, if the rain isn't completely blocking the vision of that rear view mirror, to be able to see if the child had a book bag on. As in that driver, or even looking at the mirror on the inside of your car that sits up here at the top, looking in to see if you see that the child has a book bag on. I'm thinking if you can see that good in the dark, you would have been able to see that. I think that's all to be said about this video. I think somebody is lying. Something is not right. It's completely, totally off course. And I bet even you, the viewer, can see that. But the shovel, what's the point in the shovel? I ain't carrying no shovel. I ain't got no time for even that sort of thing. No, I don't. Not today, not ever. What am I going to use a shovel for? I don't even garden. That ain't even my line. That's not even it. So leave a comment, like, subscribe. You let me know. And I'ma holla back. Release your Rudd. I'm trying to get her videos together. I got my notes